So I think that with long-term sick, yes,
Mm-hmm.
or at least disabled,
Yeah.
and different things like that. Now, I have an element of urticaria and angioedema. Just going to be a little bit more personal on this, and it causes some parts of me to swell up, or I have strange rashes that appear.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you know what is quite hard to deal with that? It takes a lot to get over.
Yeah.
Is because you feel different inside yourself. And I'm not going to say that everybody who is disabled or has something along these lines feels the same way, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to try and interpret in the way I feel in
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
to try and see if we can get some. And I think that's the best thing about being a politician is to try and walk in as many people's shoes as possible to at least get an understanding or an idea
Mm-hmm.
of what challenges people have to face.
Yeah.
Yes? So when I get this, and if I were to go out,
Mm-hmm.
people stare at you.
Yeah.
It gives you attention for all the wrong reasons,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Now, it's an awful lot to try and battle that. Some days you're stronger than others
Mm-hmm.
when you can face the world in it and just not really give a shit about it.
Yeah.
And then other days it becomes quite an uphill struggle.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I was with the DWP and I was leader of this nation, it would be anybody that has to go through this. Um, it's the pressure that no one understands. If you're not disabled in that way or you haven't got this, you don't really understand too much what that is like to have external pressures stare at you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then if you were to look at other individuals in society,
Mm-hmm.
people can't help but stare.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter whether you've got a metal frame coming out of your head,
Yeah.
for all I care. When you watch and observe other people from a distance,
Mm-hmm.
because you may have walked through this yourself, you notice that, and it becomes very uncomfortable for the individual that has to go through that. So, what I would do as a politician is I would understand that there are good days and there are bad days.
Yeah.
And I would guarantee you for life that you would be receiving some type of disability living allowance or personal independent payment.
Yeah.
I think the reason why the benefits in this country changed for the better was when David Cameron, because he has insight,
Yeah.
a politician that was
Mm-hmm.
able to walk through people's shoes, because I believe that he sees it with his own children.
Yeah.
I would give you lifelong agreement that it would be signed and it could never be undone,
Mm-hmm.
that you would be entitled to a benefit from the tax pot
Yeah.
for life.
Yeah.
And with this clause, it would have, and I would also lean on employers, this would be something that I could do, would be that they would give you a job on the good days.
Mm-hmm.
And you would be taxed on the good days.
Yeah.
So if you go to work and earn a crust for a bit, but on those days when the mapping inside, it starts getting a bit too much in the world, you can then just pick this back up. No forms, no nonsense, no jump through this hoop, walk through this, do that. No. It would be accepted that you can pick up a job when you want.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the employer should make rooms for this, to be honest. Move the boundaries a lot more. We don't understand, when I say we, people don't understand what that external pressure can be like, especially on a day when or a week where it starts getting the better of you.
Yeah.
The sort of questioning, remote questioning as why do I have this? Why
Mm-hmm.
me? Sort of thing. And it does happen. And to say that people are going to be always in this happy la la type of situation is absolute ludicrous to even believe that people can keep that up all the time. And
Yeah.
I think that sometimes it snowballs downwards.
Mm-hmm.
So I would give you lifelong access to the tax pot.
Yeah.
It would need to be employers that would need to have this flexible job.
Yeah.
If you're good at this job, you want to go and work there for a bit and you feel confident to do so, it won't affect this.
Mm-hmm.
This will stop while you go to work.
Yeah.
You get your wage, you charge the tax, this, that, and the other. You know how it all works.
Mm-hmm.
Those types of things
Yeah.
that you will be relied on to let the department know.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that it should be an aggro of that. I think that it should just be linked to you that, okay, we can see that you generated a tax this week.
Yeah.
We can see that you're doing it next week. Okay, now it comes close to the month. At the end of the month, this automatically, in today's AI, automatically this one stops,
Mm-hmm.
this one starts, the tax is aligned to what is meant to be paid.
Yeah.
And then if the following month this happens, this one activates. Okay, we can see that you didn't, there's no tax coming in on here. Okay, you didn't go to work this time. Okay, this one then safeguards you.
Mm-hmm.
And you haven't got to explain nothing. You can try and get back into your happy mental state again. And when you reach that, it will be seen. It will be seen based on whether you go here, whether you go to another employer over there, you know, and hopefully you find the confidence that you need and it's a much more longer.
Yeah.
But if you don't, you don't need to worry. This has got you.
Yeah.
And you will be cradled in these hands and you will be looked after.
Mm-hmm.
So when it gets a bit much, when it gets a little bit too much, because realistically, if we were all to admit in society and we were to put our hands on our hearts, when you see something different, and you do, everybody's attention goes to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's good attention, and then there's bad attention, and then there's what's your mindset? What are you going through inward thinking? And perhaps you don't want to share that. Perhaps you don't know how to explain that. Perhaps it's embarrassing to say that, and you don't want to say it.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, this type of approach, I think, is far more beneficial in society. You ain't got to worry about filling out forms. You ain't got to worry about explaining yourself constantly. You haven't got to go to a silly meeting every so often to go and meet some of the ruthless registered nurses that you've got that just patronize and all the rest of it. There are some good ones out there, but there are also some very patronizing ones out there. You haven't got to worry about any of that because it is seen that this may not go away.
Mm-hmm.
It's a permanent, and then as this, we can then begin to cradle and look after society, and then this gives hope that if anyone goes through this themselves, any type of accident, we don't know what could happen tomorrow. This automatically cradles you. If you're going through a terminal illness or anything else like that, and the same thought processes come, perhaps there are good days and there are bad days, you ain't got to go and explain nothing again for X amount of time. We hope that it clears off and clears up. But you ain't got to keep coming and explaining this. It's quite easy to see this on doctors' records without anybody needing to see it. AI could take care of this. Douche, put a token in here. Job Center sees that. Okay, types that in. Okay, you get this. You don't need to keep going. You don't want any extra stresses, especially if you are going through something that is quite traumatic, because, again, where the survival rates in different cancers and things like that are getting better, the last thing you need is stress. If you feel on some of these days where you're on top of the world and you can go and work, go and work. You ain't got to tell anyone, you ain't got to declare it. We'll see it via your tax that you're making. AI will read this. Okay, all right, you got working tax this week. You find that you're able to do it for a week. But then for the next 4 weeks, you have a downward trajectory because you've got a lot of internal thoughts. The what happens if I die? The what happens if this? What happens if it is not successful? You need to be able to get back on your feet in your own time, and your own remote mapping will take over. Don't want you to feel in that sort of stressy situation. But on top of that, to then face homelessness, to then face a job center, to then face jump through this hoop, to then fill this form out, it's very stressful. And I think that then we've got doctors working with DWP to take your feet, you know, the load off your feet. The tax system that is about, whether it's working tax, when you go to work and you start generating a tax, okay, you worked 4 days. Okay, you worked 2 days. You managed this. I would rather that it comes naturally to you because then it's better for an employer. And if employers can make this very flexible, you know, you don't have to explain everything to them. They will know that this is a certain category that you're going to be working in. No one will penalize you for that. And then I think that what we get is a much more better system that works. It works. You know you. You know you at the end of the day. And there is no magic wand to remove this. It is a grueling process that you have to go through. Even if you're at work and you're healthy, fit and healthy, and then all of a sudden, heaven forbid it happens, but realistically, we've got to look at the realisticness. This happens to you. you know, and some days you're just not in it. This, I think, will hamper recovery with the stress. You know, you probably want to just go off and probably be with some loved ones or whatever it may be, that you just, whatever, you do you in those situations. And this system will have you. It's got you. And it doesn't matter whether you are a newcomer, someone who's going through this right now, whether you are disabled, and whatever the remote mapping is inside. I would rather that you work when you feel able to in that. And when you can't, you know you. No one else outside of you knows this. Only you know it. And only you know what is good for you. And you can go and find your morale in whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then I think that this takes a massive burden off of here, because I think at the moment we seem to be able to favour a lot of money for war. We've got money for weapons, we've got money for this, but we don't have any money for recovery or... And I think that this brings in a better system that is fair for everybody. And why is it fair? If anything happens to you, car crash, car accident, and you need a lot of physiotherapy, it's going to be a bit ruthless to expect you to work, and then facing on top of this, you've got a stress to fill out a load of forms. No, you shouldn't need to be worrying about forms. What is more important to you is your recovery. And perhaps you was working, and then this happens. It's not your fault. Or maybe it is, and you have a car accident, and it was your fault. But again, still recover, and then you can get back on your feet. And some days you're going to have good days. We feel on top of the world, things are going great, and then sometimes you're just going to drop down from that. You know you. And then I think for looking at history, everyone recovers at a different speed, but there is a guideline. And then I think that we should do it from worst case scenario. What was the longest time it took someone to recover from point A to point B? And if this was the longest time, being 3 months for this one, 6 months for this, 2 years for this, 6 years worth of this, depending on what stage you're at, where it's at, the worst case scenario. And if there is something that goes a bit beyond that, then we move the goalpost to 4 months if it's 3. And then this covers in the niche, and not everyone is going to have the same path, but a roundabout sort of way. Some people might be slightly shorter than that, and I'm sure they would let you know. And therefore, it should cover you for the whole duration, not just this whole, for this long, and then we want to see you again, and then we want to do this, and then we want to do that, and then we want to force you into this, because it's, I don't wish it on anybody, but from a politician's standpoint, they seem to have it quite easy.
Right.
They seem to be able to have all of this movement and flowage. And then I dare say that the one time that you do get a politician that has seen this, there is a change happen. And therefore there's this lack of knowledge. And therefore, to me, in so many ways, Cameron was able to walk into people's shoes because he saw it, he experienced it, he knew the difficulties of it and didn't want this for his children. And therefore he looked at that and thought, what about other children? And therefore there were some really beneficial changes come from that. Sort of. It moved a little bit more, that there was more understanding. And then you seem to have some quite ruthless politicians that come in that think it's all about this and it's all about that and it's about this and we know what's best for you and we know what's best. And clearly you don't, because you can't factor that in. And it would be great if we did a social experiment where we got the head of the DWP and we put her in something, in a wheelchair or whatever it may be, or put something on her and then see the attention and see how she handles that. Because at the moment, it seems this good attention that they get, this good attention, and they love the attention because they're just such show ponies. Got to look a hero in front of these people and these people. Oh, look at what they say, and well, I can handle this bad scrutiny. Yes, but that's choice. That's choice. You're making a choice to go out and get that scrutiny towards you. And then the others here, that's choice. That is choice. I often wonder, I ask the question of what's in it for you. You know, I'm here, I'm ready to collapse this. What are you going to do after that?
Hmm?
What's your next? Is there some sort of subsidy in this? Well, if you manage to free up all of this, we'll pay you this much. It's always follow the money.
Yeah,
Follow the
yeah.
money.
Hmm?
And then what's in it for? I don't know her name now. Rachel Reeds. Maybe you can read between these lines. What's in it for you? Well, of course, it's making you a living. That's what it's doing.
Yeah.
Isn't it strange how you can make a living out of going for the most poorest individuals in society without a care in the world? So, I owe you on the verge of caution with all of this.
Yeah.
Because I want to see more of this. Caring. And then this leads me to question, you want to take more control over people's children? Without this. So, a better system. And it would be signed. There you are. And I think that this approach would be far more beneficial, because at the end of the day, it's all about this thing called money.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot more difficult to go, okay, people, we're going to go and battle this. Then when you make a new tax pot, I mean, how much do we spend on defense anyway? But clearly it's not enough. But you don't ask the people and say, okay, right, people, we've got this so-called enemy, XYZ. This is what we need you to pay. And then people will be like, well, we're in a democracy. We don't want to pay that. We don't want this battle. We don't want... And that's the problem. There's the problem. That's where this is where this all underlines. It's all about the money. You follow the money, and this is what it's about. It's so much more easier for me to kick someone who I believe is unworthy, insignificant. And this is the mapping that everyone has. Everyone's been around playground. You can see it. Everyone's grown up with this. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
It's that sort of... Yeah. No, I think it's absolutely disgusting, to be honest. And I think that this, many years ago, if you remember, the same governments and institutions that are about today were calling out Adolf Hitler for doing things like this as an excuse to go to war. And now, the very ones that wanted the war back then, and among other things, yes, absolutely among other things, but this one was quite the thing that they were going for. And isn't it amazing how they've become the very things that they've targeted? So any excuse to get something, and then you become it yourself. So it's not okay for them to do it because you said so, but now it's okay for you to become the very thing that apparently that Houses of Parliament is the same place where Churchill stood and everybody else who wanted the battle were calling this shit out. The same building, the same structure. But yet, it's not okay for them to do it, and it seems like for a similar reason, but it's okay for you to do it for the exact same reason. And then you tell me where these double standards are going to end up leading the establishment. Because, you know, you keep changing this goalpost somewhere. So this would be where it would be at. And then there's no excess stress. And then this empowers people, because that's what politics is meant to be about. Empowering all people in all places from all walks of life, and not just favoring a few. Empowering all people. That's the Conservatives and the Labour, the people that put into these. So does that mean that Labour won't favour Conservatives then? People who vote for Conservatives or a different party? Because they just don't fit in a niche. If you can't run with your lowest, that you would say in society, with poor in terms of income, the lowest paid in society, if you can't run with these individuals, I don't need a leader personally that's going to run with just the ones at the top and then change from that and drop down to somebody else and then drop down, because that means you're being used. only whilst you suit an agenda, you now become heroes. You are disgusting.
Mhm.
You are money grabbers. You are this. You are lazy. You are fraudsters.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that agenda's dropped, you lot are murderers. Look at this. Look at what you take the food from these I think this is disgusting. So I think that this is a much more better approach. And if this takes enough pressure off of any individual in society like this, then I think that this will generate work, and then it helps employers get a bit more flexible.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, when do you want to work? Well, I can do a couple of days here and there. Feel free. And they just call them up. I'm not going to do it. Yep, that's fine. No pressure. Thank you for your time anyway. Look, we're always here for you. If you feel that you're able to, just give us a call.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, thank you so much. No, you are absolutely welcome. There you are. Sharing the love can be done on all levels.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, gonna leave this one here because I think that hits a nail on the head for me.
Yeah.